Hello, welcome to Ruckster. Today I'm going to take my time off to show my customer who purchased these harness how to install it and properly kind of give them a layout of what our harness looks like. Today we're going to actually see a harness on the bike, and I'm going to just point out where the connectors and connections needs to be made. Over here is the right side of your battery box. This is where I start my connection first. Here you have the battery, as you all know, and remember the blue relay that you had to swap over from your old harness and plug it in. This is your starter relay. These are your signals and stuff, your accessory relay. This also need to be swapped over, like I said in the last segment. Here's your external kill switch. We don't utilize this kill switch like on the stock one. This is external, so when you turn off your engine, this kills it. And then this is what the ignition switch looks like. You won't be able to see it, so I kind of have to show it right here. This connector goes right behind your key cylinder. It plugs right in there. See? Okay. In this picture right now, you're seeing that both terminals are plugged in. I usually just plug in the positive terminal and leave the negative terminal off until the whole entire process is done, and then I'll plug this in last, just in case you get a short somewhere. This is always the last one I plug in. And down here is your rectifier. This is your charging system. It's called a rectifier. It's already pre-plugged in for you. You just need to tuck it away. Usually what I usually do on this case, I usually try to zip tie it right below that fuel module and keep it nice and tucked. That way it doesn't rattle all the time. And this component gets really hot, so I don't even recommend it to put anywhere else. This is a good spot for it. And on this harness right here, you have the CDI. Okay, this is what ignites your spark plugs. I usually swing it around and kind of zip tie it to this gray bracket, so that way it's nice and solid and keeps it from rattling. And down here you have your flasher relay. If you're running the stock head signals and the stock tail light signals, then you can use your stock relay. But if you're changing it up to LED and you want that thing to flash, you're going to need to acquire one of these relay, and we do sell in our store. And all you got to do is just make a simple connection with these two butt connectors right here. And it doesn't matter how you put it, it's just, you can reverse it if you want, and that's fine. This right here is your ignition wire. If you're going to run any gauges that needs to run RPM, this is where you would tap into, but a lot of time you can just leave that dangling if you're not going to use it. We just leave it here exposed, so you know if you need to run RPM, this is where you want to plug it in. Here on the bike are your two indicator light. You got the high beam indicator and the low fuel indicator. This part of the harness is the most frequently asked question. I don't know why. I mean, it plugs in exactly how you would remove the stock one. But anyways, in any case, the high beam indicator, you've got this pink wire, this green orange wire. It plugs into this connector right here. And then you got the fuel light, goes straight and plugs into this connector, this 2-pin connector right here that comes out of this little black box. This little black box comes out, and then you see a 6-pin connector will connect into this part of the harness. Right? I'm trying to make it clear so you can see it, so you don't have to call me and ask me. Here you go. All right? Right here you have your brake switch cylinder on your right hand. This is for the front brake switch wire. You might have to rig one up. If not, if you have the original one, you can also use the original one. It plugs into this switch right here. And from here, it goes all the way down to your harness. Again, here's your brake switch coming down. And this is where you would make your connection right here. Doesn't matter how the wire is hooked up, it can be reversed. But one goes to the black, one goes to the green yellow right here. And here, this is your right control, which is your starter. Okay, you can buy any push button and connect it right here, or if you're using a stock one, it plugs directly right into this connector for your starter. And then over here you have your left control connector. Now this is a stage 6, so it's already wired up and it connects right into that. If you're using a stock one, it also plugs directly into that. That's your left control for your signal, headlights, and all that kind of stuff. And down here, this bundle, most of the time we don't use it unless you're running your gauges, your lights, and other stuff from the stock control. But on the swap, we generally don't use that. Then down to this connection right here is your headlight. You see, this is where it plugs directly into the stock headlights. Your horn, everything plugs into this. And then over here you got your front signals. Blue is the right, orange is left, and here's your 2 ground. Then moving it down here is your resistor for your fuel sending. This is where you would make your connection for your fuel sending unit. You need to make this connection in order for that light to work. And then of course the ECU plugs directly right into there. And don't forget your chassis ground, this big fat green ground wire. You can either mount it here on the ECU or inside the frame. It doesn't matter as long as it's mounted into the frame, you bolt it down. That's where you get your frame ground. And that's about it on this side. Remember earlier in the segment when I told you this connection comes with a red connector, red male connector. If you need to cut off the one that's off of your stock harness to match your fuel sending unit, which in this case I had to do that. As you can see, I just connected green wire with green, blue goes with blue, and this will plug directly into your fuel sending unit. And then on this side right here is where your fuel pump will plug into. This is the electronic fuel pump, and this is where you're going to make your connection. Okay. Now that you got this male connector plugged into the harness, this end right here is the female from your sending unit. It matches, it plugs right in, and then you're ready to go. Now toward the back of the harness where it's going to plug directly into the motor, first thing you plug in, right here you got the stator wires. I usually label them A and B on each side of the connectors, so it's pretty much idiot proof. But in some cases, if I do forget and you don't see those numbers, just kind of like look and see, you know, all the yellow wires pretty much go with the yellow wires connectors, and then over here you got the pickup from the stators and the ground and stuff, and it pretty much go on this side. And then you got the engine ground. You're going to see a big fat green wire. I usually tap it straight into the valve cover gasket. Any bolt, doesn't matter. You can actually tap this wire into any part of the engine as long as it's touching metal of the engine. And then up here is your tail light connection. And we're running the rPRO rear tail light, so it's all the same, the wire code if you don't know. This green with the yellow is your brake light. This black with the brown is your running light. And then you got two wires that are green with a black line. These are ground. You can ground your brake light or your signal into these. And then you have the orange is always going to be your left, and the blue is always going to be your right. And this is where you're going to plug in your tail light. And towards the back of the engine, you're going to have your coil. I usually like to mount the coil here because it's simple, it's clean, but you do have to cut this a little shorter. Basically, you'll see the two blue connectors on my harness. These happen to be covered up already because this is in the process of being built. But a raw harness, you're not going to see all this. You'll see two blue connectors. Usually the blue and yellow wire will go into the black connector, and then you got the solid green wire that will go into the green connectors right here. This is for your coil. And then back here, right here, you have your starter wire, which I've already pre-cut and made length enough to connect into their starter. It pretty much looks like this right there. You need that. You see? It plugs right into the starter right there. And then everything is done.